Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Before we start, gusto ko lang i-inform sa inyo na I will be one of the tutors of accounting and I will be available for booking. I-visit nyo lang yung FB page ng Tutor Squad and you will see my profile there soon and I will be available na. Let's discuss financial statements. Financial statements are the means for which the information are accumulated or presented in financial accounting and communicated to the users of financial statements. Financial statement daw ay isang report. Isa siyang report in which itong report pre-process niya ang lahat ng accounting information. All accounting information are accumulated and processed through financial accounting. Diniscuss natin last time kung ano yung meaning ng financial accounting. So you may go back to the video of it, no? After i-process and accumulate, binibigay naman to sa mga users of financial statements. So yun yung basic na illustration ng FS. Financial statements are the end product or main output of financial accounting process. So itong arrow na to, nagre-represent siya ng financial accounting process. Financial statements, mga bossing, are structured financial representation of financial position and financial performance ng entity. Ito yung nagre-represent ng company. Kung ano yung health ng company, kung mayaman na ba si company. So dito nakikita yung financial position as well as the financial performance. Alam mo na yung definition ng financial statements. Ngayon, pumunta naman tayo sa components ng financial statements. So mga bossing, a complete set of financial statements comprises the following components. So meron tayong 6 components of financial statements. So tandaan nyo ha, sa financial accounting, meron tayong 6 components of financial statements. Ang una ay statement of financial position. Pangalawa, income statement. Pangatlo, statement of comprehensive income. Pang-apat, statement of changes in equity. Pang-lima, statement of cash flows. At pang-anim ay ang pinakamahalaga sa lahat ay ang notes to financial statements. So after nating malaman yung components ng financial statements, pumunta naman tayo sa objectives of financial statements. So the objective of financial statements is to provide information about the financial position, financial performance, and cash flows of an entity that is useful to a wide range of users in making economic decisions. So, ang objective pala ni financial statements is to provide information. So, ulitin ko, yung objectives ng financial statements is to provide information, magbigay informasyon tungkol or about sa components ng FS that is useful to the users of financial statements in order to come up with their decision. To meet this objective, financial statements provide information about the following. So sa statement of financial position, dapat magbigay siya ng informasyon tungkol sa assets, liabilities, income, expenses. Ito same din to income tsaka expenses. And then ito equity. Ito cash flow. So yan yung pinaka-basic na contents ng financial statements. Ano yung kanyang frequency of reporting? Financial statements shall be presented at least annually. Yun lang muna ha. Generally, annual. Annual yan. Pero pwede rin quarterly. So now, isa-isahin na natin ang mga components ng financial statements, which is yung 6, no? So let's discuss statement of financial position. A statement of financial position is a formal statement showing 3 elements. Financial position. Ito yung Number 1, assets. Pangalawa, liabilities. At pangatlo, equity. Kaya siya tinawag na statements of financial position because users of financial statements primarily see investors, creditors, and other statement users analyze the statement of financial position to evaluate such factors as liquidity, solvency, and the need of the entity for additional financing. Kaya pala tinawag na financial position kasi ini-evaluate niya kung liquid pa ba si company, solvent pa ba si company, at kailangan na ba niyang umutang or need ba siya ng additional financing. Ano nga ba yung meaning ng assets? Assets are defined as resources controlled by the entity. These are resources of an entity as a result of past transaction or events from which the future economic benefits are expected to flow to the entity. So ulitin natin, no? Ang assets ay ang resources ng entity as a result of past events or yung mga nakaraang nangyari. Useful to provide future economic benefits that are expected to flow from the entity. So, ang essential characteristics naman ng assets ay una, controlled. Number 2, it is a result of past events. Number 3, it should provide future economic benefits. At ang pang-apat, the cost of the asset can be measured reliably. So, alam na natin yung meaning ng assets. Let's go to the classification of assets. So, tandaan nyo, assets is ari-arian. Parang crush nyo lang yan, for example. May crush ka. Ano yung mga katangian ng crush mo? Mayaman ba siya? Gwapo ba siya? Mataba ba siya? Ano ba siya? Gwapo ba siya? Matalino ba siya? Mayaman ba siya? Yung mga ganun. Meron ba siyang maraming ari-arian? Ayan. So, let's go to classification of assets. Assets are classified as current and non-current. So, ilagay ko lang dito CA at ilagay ko dito NCA. When an entity supplies goods or services within a clearly identifiable operating cycle, a separate classification of current and non-current assets is useful information by distinguishing between the net assets that are continuously circulating as a working capital from the net assets that are used in long-term operation. So, yung pinagkaiba lang nila is the timing. So, ang classification ng current and non-current assets is dumidepende pala sa operating cycle. Operating cycle of an entity is the time between the acquisition and the realization. Isa pala tong time frame between the acquisition ng mga assets o ari-arian and the realization, up to the realization stage. Kung hindi mo ma-clearly identify ito, it is presumed to be 12 months or 1 year. So, alam mo na yung operating cycle. Balik tayo sa definition ng current assets. Ang asset daw ay current if it is a cash or cash equivalent. So, number 1. So, yung cash and cash equivalent, definitely current assets yan kasi ginagamit yan ni company. Number 2, if the entity holds the asset for trading. So, if for trading, pasok siya dito sa acquisition through to realization. Kasi example, inventories. For trading yan, binebenta mo yan. So, day-to-day operation, part yan ng day-to-day operation mo. So, we are expecting it to realize within the year. Kasi yung binebenta mo, hindi mo naman pinapatagal, no? So, if pwedeng mabenta, ibenta mo yan. Number 3, you must expect to realize it within 12 months. Sinabi ko nga, within the normal operating cycle, which is the 12 months. So, if di yan pasok sa 12 months, hindi yan considered as current assets. Number 4, it is intended to realize or consume within the normal operating cycle. So, nandito na naman si normal operating cycle. Ano naman yung definition ng non-current assets? So, ilagay ko na lang dito. not current asset. If hindi siya pasok as current asset sa apat na nabanggit ko, siya ay non-current assets, no? A liability must be a present obligation, number 1. Number 2, it must be a past transaction or events. Number 3, the settlement of liability requires an outflow. Yun yung mga criteria, ulitin natin. It must be a present obligation, meaning isa siyang utang as of the moment. It must be a result of past transaction of events or events. So, example, nag-loan ka ng isang kotse. Nagkaroon ka ng past transaction. Yung past transaction mo is yung loan. Pag-acquire ng loan ng kotse. So, number 3, it must have an outflow of benefits. So, kagaya ng assets, yung liabilities is nahati din sa dalawa. Ito yung current liabilities at yung non-current liabilities. So, yung current liabilities, merong criteria din yan. So, number 1, must be expected to settle within the normal operating cycle. Number 2, liability must be for trading. Number 3, settlement of which must be 12 months or 1 year. And number 4, there must be no unconditional rights to defer the settlement. Meaning, wala kang right para i-extend yung pagbabayad. Again, residual definition ng non-current liability. A non-current liability must not be a current liability. So, residual definition tayo. So, if hindi current liability, non-current liability yan. Last natin na discussion ay ang shareholders equity or equity. Ang equity ay isang residual interest from the owners' net assets. Tinatawag din tong net assets. Equity is a residual interest of the owners in the net assets of an entity, measured by the excess of assets over liabilities. So, tinawag siyang net assets kasi derive siya sa formula na assets minus liability. So, yun, no? Assets less liabilities. Ang equal niyan ay equity. Last discussion natin is ano-ano yung forms of statement of SFP. So, paano pre-present yung SFP? May dalawang presentation. Merong report form. So, yung report form, pre-present niya yung 3 major sections in a downward sequence of assets, liabilities, and equity. So, nakaganito siya. Yung account form naman, as suggest, the presentation follows the account, meaning the assets are shown on the left side, liabilities are shown on the right side, as well as the equity. So, pag account form, ganito yan. Ganito yung kalalabasan niya. Habang yung report form naman, ganito. So, ito yung example ng isang financial position. San Miguel Corporation and Subsidiaries, Consolidated Statement of Financial Position, March 31, 2020 and December 31, 2019. So, ito makikita nyo, yung Statement of Financial Position na example na to ay isang quarterly financial position. So, nagtatapos siya sa March 31, 2020, habang yung year end naman niya is December 31, 2019. Makikita nyo na yung statement of financial position ni San Miguel Corporation ay naka-account form, meaning yung left side ay yung assets, while yung right side naman is yung liabilities and equity. So, makikita natin sa statement of financial position or balance sheet ni San Miguel Corporation, meron siyang current assets, meron siyang non-current assets, sa right side naman nakikita mo yung liabilities and equity. So, meron siyang current liabilities, meron siyang non-current liabilities, at dito nakapresent yung equity.